girl Jade Ashley, and I want to welcome you back to yet another video of When a Beat Drops, where I give you my 5 hottest beats and music of this week, so stay tuned for more. Okay guys, so let's dive into this week's beats. So my first beat of this week, I want to talk about XXL's 2015 freshman class. The class was revealed this week as the cover of the issue was revealed. And I first want to congratulate everyone who made the 2015 freshman class, of course. And I just want to read off who's on the cover, and I'll let you know who I knew before the cover came out and artists that I was like introduced to prior to the cover coming out, because me, I'm the type of person, I don't know every new artist and stuff or whatever. So I like to, I'm always interested in seeing who's gonna make like XXL's freshman class, because one, you get to see artists that you are already onto, get their recognition for what they've been doing, and then also you're introduced to artists you may have not known. So some of, or the artists that are on this year's cover or part of like the freshman class is Loaf, Tink, Fetty Wap, Kid, Camp. No, those are the people that I already knew when I saw like the freshman class. And then the others on the cover or part of the freshman class that I did not know is OG Mako. Now I know him because I know of his song You Guessed It, right, or whatever. So, but that's the only song I know about him. So I really don't know him too much as an artist, but I know that one song by him. Rory, Shy Glizzy, I heard that name before, but I don't like really know him as an artist. Vince Staples is another artist that I've heard of before, but I really don't know him. And then Gold Link. So those are all of the people that are part of the freshman class. And this past week, Vanessa Satin and Miranda J from XXL, they actually went to the Breakfast Club, and I'll be sure to link the interview below so you can hear. And they basically kind of just, of course, talked about the artists that made this year's freshman class, as well as like what are the requirements and like the process and stuff that they go through to actually come up with the final class and stuff or whatever. And I remember her saying in the interview that this is a process that she usually starts, I think she said sometime in like October, November. And I think for this year in particular, she said that they had a big list of like at least 75 rappers, and throughout the months and stuff or whatever, they go through debates, they talk to various amounts of people, they go to these artist shows and stuff, they kind of like watch them social media wise, they watch whatever music they release without the months and stuff or whatever, to determine who they are going to choose for that final cut to be a part of the freshman class and stuff or whatever. I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense, because we all like somebody such as like Tink, we've definitely been hearing about her for a minute, and she's definitely making a splash within the industry, especially with her like little Lauryn Hill comparisons, and because she's like backed up by Timbaland. Of course, Loaf. We all know Fetty Wap. He definitely has like the song of the summer. The summer didn't even start yet, so he had us going crazy with Trap Queen, and then he has My Way, and then so like it makes sense and stuff or whatever. And I remember one of the questions that was asked in the interview was, is there any artist that they felt over at XXL that they didn't ever include in part of like any past freshman classes, who kind of like went on to become like these big rappers and like make this big impact in hip-hop. And some of the artists that Vanessa had named was Nicki Minaj and Drake and like Waka and stuff or whatever. So even though like being part of XXL's freshman class is definitely like a huge thing, there are artists that who never made the freshman class who go on to be like these big names. Nicki and Drake, like, come on, it's Nicki and Drake. So but yeah. And then another thing that I kind of learned that I didn't really think about, that they took into consideration when they're trying to like determine who they're going to choose to be a part of the freshman class, was that they actually they consider like the artist's age and stuff or whatever, because I believe it was Envy when they asked the question about, oh, so what rappers do you feel you kind of like missed out on that should have, you know, been part of like previous freshman classes, I remember he had, you know, mentioned Chinks. So then she was like, yeah, you know, they kind of go for more like youth, I guess, or whatever the case may be. So she kind of talked about, she mentioned French because, you know, French and Chinks, you know, were linked to each other and stuff or whatever. So I never knew that they kind of really took into account the age, because I know it says like, you know, freshman class, so you would think obviously young, but usually when they say freshman they really mean, you know, like people who are on the brink of like releasing like their debut albums or stuff like that or whatever. So it's not so much just their age, but also how new they are to like the music scene. But then again, I learned from the interview that age is taken into consideration. And then there's one thing that was released aside from us finding out the cover, was like behind the scene footage of like the shoot and stuff like that. So you get to see like all of the rappers, you know, they take like their individual, you know, photos and stuff or whatever. They have like their individual freestyles, and then of course like the ciphers, and then of course they take like the big, you know, class picture and whatnot. And the video of like the ciphers and, you know, the freestyles and like all of the pictures and stuff are not released as of yet, but I think she said by next week and then the following week and stuff or whatever, they'll release like the ciphers and then like the freestyles and stuff or whatever. So definitely when they come out, I'll probably remind you guys so you can like check it out and stuff or whatever. So if you know whoever is on the cover, see how they did, and who you may not know, you know, see what they all about. Because I think from last year's class, I didn't know everyone who was on the cover, but then they gained like popularity and stuff or whatever after being on like, you know, XXL's freshman class. You know, we had Vic Mensa, you know, we had Kevin Gates and stuff like that. That was a part of the freshman class last year, and then like their momentum just built within this past year and stuff or whatever. So that was pretty cool. So of course, you know, XXL's fifth freshman class is always something big within hip hop, so I cannot mention it like the week that it comes out. So yeah. So moving on to my second beat of this week, I want to talk about Akon. So I know there's been like a lot of talk about other things that aren't really music related that I won't talk about, that kind of went down this week and whatever, and then it was like, oh, we should like focus more on, you know, like positive stories and stuff. And I always want to do like positive stories, so it's like I don't always do positive stories. I only could like talk about like what's out there. But when this came out, it was no way that I was not gonna like mention this. So Akon, he is starting a solar academy, which will provide, I think it was like 600 million Africans with like electricity. So basically what I read is that his academy will teach engineers and entrepreneurs how to develop solar power and to maintain the solar power systems throughout. These schools are actually going to be located in Bamako. So if anybody, I don't know how to pronounce like all of the places within, you know, Africa, so if I'm saying it wrong, somebody comment below and let me know and correct me and stuff. But so far it's like 2 locations, and one is Bamako, I hope I'm spelling that right, and then the capital of Mali. And I thought it was pretty cool as far as like, you know, instead of just like providing them with solar power so they can have like electricity, the fact that they're taking their time to like teach engineers and like entrepreneurs within Africa to like, you know, develop it and then to maintain it. Because I remember when I first started college and I saw like some documentary in one of my classes and stuff or whatever, and it was like a water pump in like some African country that they had placed the water pump, and you know, everyone had water, and then like the water pump broke, and like these like people, they were like without water all over again and stuff or whatever, and they did not know how to maintain it. So it's dope that he's like providing them with electricity, but aside from just providing them with it, he's teaching them the ability to, of course, have it and then also to maintain it. So, you know, if something were to happen, you know, there's someone who can fix it, and they don't just have like electricity and then something happens in there without it or whatever. So it was something just do good. Shout outs to Akon and stuff or whatever. You know, he's always like giving back. You know, it's not always talked about all of the things that he does do, especially, you know, him being like a native. I forgot what country he's from in Africa, but I'll be sure to put it somewhere in the video and stuff or whatever. You know, I'm not always on point, I'm sorry for that, but yeah. So moving on to my third beat of this week, I have to bring it back to Janet Jackson. I think it was last week or the week before I talked about Janet. So we all know by now that Miss Jackson is coming back with a new tour and a new album this year, and we are all so excited. And there has been some more information that has been released with her whole situation and her return to music. And so far, as of now, we know that her new album will be released on her own record label, Rhythm Nation Records or whatever, and it is going to be under the BMG umbrella, and everything should start, you know, rolling around the fall time of this year. So I'm really excited for that. And aside from her, you know, being an artist on her own label, she's also looking to, you know, sign other artists, you know, help them get their music out there and stuff like that. I read something where they were saying that a lot of the artists were gonna have like control and stuff of their music, which is pretty dope. And also, Janet will be the first ever African-American female artist to be the head of her like own label. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then also, the first single for her upcoming album will be coming out next month. So guys, get ready, because like I said before, that when that first single comes out, I'm here to let y'all know. So yeah. So shout out to Janet Jackson, and we are patiently waiting for your return to music, and we cannot wait. So yes, my favorite Janet song, Principle of Pleasure. I love that song. So yeah, moving on to my fourth beat of this week, I have to talk about Miss Nicki Minaj on the July issue of Cosmopolitan Magazine. It was just weird because I talked about Meek Mill last week when he was on the Fader magazine cover. But yeah, so Nicki, she is on the July issue of Cosmopolitan, and I'll be sure to put the cover here or whatever so you guys can see how amazing she looks. And I just want to of course read some quotes, and then I'll insert some pictures and stuff or whatever. So yeah, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is her, you know, discussing like the whole concept of money and being open about like how much you make and all of that other stuff. So Nicki said, "Women are uncomfortable talking about money. I know it's taboo to discuss it at work. Technically you shouldn't, but you need to know what people around you are making. Otherwise you're not going to know what you're worth. You have to ask questions. What is this person getting? Do your research. I've always been pretty competitive in terms of my pay." We know that. So the next thing she talked about was recording the pink print after her breakup with Safari. And I think that it wasn't her recording the album after they broke up. I think they were still together when she was recording it, and then they broke up around the time that the album came out. But she said, "I didn't set out to write a personal album, but the pink print came at a very crucial time in my life. I realized that people can up and take off at any given moment. As women, we are vulnerable and emotional, and that's okay. I had to learn quickly that if you don't have a sense of self, you can be destroyed by a man. You can be destroyed by a relationship. I had to ask myself, who am I? Is this good enough? I had to approve of myself and my skills." And the last thing I want to read about is where she sees herself in 10 years. So she says, 10 years from now, I will have 2 children unless my husband wants 3. I will be into my fitness a lot more. I will stop yo-yo dieting, and I will be a housewife with careers that I can run from home. I want to be able to cook for my children, bake cookies for them, and watch them grow. I just want to be a mommy. Take them to school, go to the parent-teacher conference, help them with their homework, and put their work on the refrigerator. You know, that's a nice dream of hers, but as Nicki Minaj, I think, I can't say that it won't happen, but I think it will just be probably a little bit more different than what she's picturing it right now, because you can't be one of like the most top selling females in rap right now and think that that whole momentum is just going to die down and you just going to fade and be a regular person. Girl, Nicki, you done passed regular. But anyway, she looks amazing, and the July issue of Cosmopolitan Magazine comes out on newsstands on June 9th. So yeah. So my last beat of this week, I have to talk about Ed Sheeran. So if you guys don't know, this past week he was on the Tonight Show and he did a cover to Fetty Wap. So I was just talking about Fetty Wap in the first beat. He did a cover to Fetty Wap's hit single Trap Queen. And if you guys know, on the Tonight Show, the Roots are actually like the in-house, you know, band and stuff or whatever. So he had, you know, the Roots backing him up and stuff while he was doing the cover, and he is just like so dope. I think the only time I've ever mentioned like Ed Sheeran on the show probably was, I think maybe the first or second, I think it was like the second video or whatever, and that was when he had performed at the VMAs. And at the time I was very unfamiliar with him. Like, I had heard his name and stuff or whatever, but I didn't know that, yo, he was really dope vocally. So Ed Sheeran, he performed the cover of Trap Queen, like I said, and it was just amazing. And last week he was actually on The Breakfast Club. So by watching that Breakfast Club interview, I learned so much about him and stuff or whatever. So aside from him being like a dope vocalist, he's actually very heavy on rap music, which explains why he did the Trap Queen cover. And what I learned from him is that I think he said it was his uncle who gave him like his first ever like rap CD, and that was actually Eminem. And by him listening to Eminem, he was put onto other rappers such as Jay-Z, Biggie, Tupac. I remember him naming Big Pun and stuff or whatever. And while he was on the Breakfast Club, he actually was sitting there rapping, you know, a whole Biggie song. Then he talked about like Taylor Swift and Katy Perry and his past relationships and where he wants to see, or like, I think like in the next year or something like that, I think he wants to like take a break from like music to just chill out and enjoy life before coming back. And it was a dope interview. It was a fun interview and stuff or whatever. So if you guys didn't catch Ed Sheeran's interview from The Breakfast Club from last week, I should have mentioned it last week or whatever, but it only came up because it was his dope Trap Queen cover. So I'll be sure to link his Trap Queen cover below, and then I'll also link his interview from The Breakfast Club from last week as well. So yeah, those are my 5 hot beats of this week. Okay guys, so I want to thank you for tuning into this week's video, and like always, you know I have to end every video by reminding you guys to comment on this video, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and be sure to share my videos with other people. And I have 3 quick notes to leave you guys with this week. My first note, I want to congratulate Iggy Azalea and Nick Young. They got engaged, so congratulations to them. You know, she had to recently cancel her Great Escape tour, but I mean, where there's darkness, there's light, or whatever one of those quotes mean and stuff or whatever. And then I also want to send a congratulations to Ludacris and his wife Dexy, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but you guys know y'all know they together, and they welcomed their baby girl this week, so congratulations to them. And also congratulations to Fabulous and Emily B. They welcomed their new baby boy. And then my last note of this week, I want to remind you guys that one of my favorite shows is coming back with season 2, which is Sisterhood of Hip Hop, and they will be returning June 9th on Oxygen at 9 p.m. So I know for a fact that the next video that I do, I will be talking about Sisterhood of Hip Hop, because I absolutely love that show. So those are my notes, and of course I have to leave you with my song of the week. And my song of the week is gonna have to go to Elle Varner with her new song Birthday featuring 50 Cent. This past week in New York City was the screening for the first episode of season 2 for Power, and then after like the whole Power celebration, there was also like a concert that was held, and 50 Cent brought out Elle Varner to perform this song, and I actually like it. It is supposed to be on her upcoming album 4 Letter Word, which is long overdue, so hopefully it makes the 2015 mark before the year is over. So yes, if you want to hear the song in its entirety, you can head over to my blog at www.jade-ashley.com to check out that song and other new music that is up there as well. So I will see you guys later. Bye. Hey guys, don't forget to share and subscribe, and be sure to tune in next week.